Hello and welcome again to Unsourced Wall. My name is Elvis Dutan, and as always, I'm your host. Alright, so this is going to be kind of a fun episode. We have some things I didn't expect I was going to be doing this week, so let's just get on into it with some movie news. Now, let's just get this out of the way. Tom King is writing the New Gods movie. I think that he's borderline a talentless hack. I think he has no idea what to do with the New Gods. I think he has zero skill, creativity, and has no actual foothold with what makes the New Gods work. He's the guy who said Orion was a spoiled brat and tried to push a narrative about Scott abandoning his family to escape into a fantasy land and push that as a mental health moral about self-care. This is perhaps the worst choice that WB could have gone with. You also have director Ava DuVernay, whose terrible Wrinkle in Time already proves she can't handle the cosmic or the fantastical, and add this in, and why even make this movie at all? There's nothing in here that could be salvageable. It's a sorry situation, and I'd rather not talk about it anymore because it just makes me sad. What a waste of the New Gods to see this happen. It's a shame because, well, this is probably gonna be the only New Gods movie they ever make, and they put two people who do not know how to handle this kind of shit and have proven that they can't. And it's honestly really disheartening and disappointing, and it kind of breaks my heart a little bit, but you know what? I still have all these amazing stories and things that came out from it, so it is a shame because this is going to be something that people are going to be exposed to, and for better or worse, it's already starting off on the worst foot imaginable. It really is. Moving ahead, we also have the confirmation that Robert Pattinson will be the new Batman. It's an okay choice. I still would have preferred Nicholas Hoult, but either would have been fine, so honestly WB was kind of spoiled for choice here. Now the only thing is to make sure the movie is actually good, so all due best wishes to Matt Reeves to knock out a great script. While I have my reservations about that, I think he still has it within him to make something really, really awesome. And I really hope they do because I want to believe that the Matt Reeves who made Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is still in there somewhere. There's not much in terms of news today, so let's just do some quick shots. We have the trailer for an adaptation of a Vertigo comic that was released called The Kitchen. It's starring Tiffany Haddish, Melissa McCarthy, and Elizabeth Moss. I haven't ever read the series it's based on, but the writer commemorated the release of the trailer with a very touching post about how it was their first published work and that it changed their life. And that's really nice, and honestly, I really hope that it's decent and that it does well because of that. It's a really solid way to generate goodwill for me, at least. And the trailer itself looks pretty okay. It looks kind of average. I don't mind average as long as it's still good, you know. Next up, we have that the New Mutants are still planning their reshoots for some reason. I still don't understand. They had a nearly complete movie, or at least one that was ready to be released only a few months after their first trailer was put out 2 years ago. So why is this still like such a priority for them? I don't think that they should have this much sort of leeway into it because they're already rebooting everything, so why care? But whatever. The reshoots are expected to finally be completed later this year, and fingers crossed that it comes out. And I still think that it should have a half-life of a sequel and maybe a second sequel just to finish off the trilogy that, you know, Josh Boone was planning. I think that would be a shame, especially since they're not going to be rebooting for a couple of years yet, and it didn't seem like this movie was going to take that long to make anyway before they decided to mess it up a bit. Finally, we also have the idea that Sony is trying to push for Venom to be in the third MCU Spider-Man movie. I have no idea. As a fan of the Venom film, I have zero expectations for this. There's just nothing good that can come from this kind of meddling. It divorced itself from Spider-Man entirely and did a pretty good job at it, so trying to jam it back in feels like a fool's errand. Like, absolutely, this is the worst and honestly very in keeping for Sony move / thought process they could have, and I hope it doesn't happen because it's just so utterly stupid. And like I said before, there's not much in terms of news all around. Oh, right, and lastly, this is kind of breaking news, but WB's Supergirl movie, which I think was rumored like a couple years ago, is finally going to be entering production like sometime early next year, so fingers crossed to them. Hopefully it's miles better than the show and that we get something really fun out of it. So fingers crossed. Best wishes to them. So let's just move ahead into what I read this week. First, we have Heroes in Crisis number 9. So let's just get right into it. This was hilarious. Holy shit, I remain adamant that this has been as dull, as superficial, as backward, and as shallow as Mr. Miracle ever was. Yet it does something that even Mr. Miracle didn't dare approach. It went beyond the pale of ludicrousness. Both series are terrible. Both have characters that are just messy, often harmful representations of heavy themes that King has no idea how to handle, and each end in a whimper, and with a really offensive idea of self-care and mental health. And they're both insane. And yet, Mr. Miracle didn't have what Heroes in Crisis has. It didn't have such a lame, ridiculous, wannabe cute lines like bros before heroes that just melts your mind. I mean, sure, Mr. Miracle had lame-ass jokes, but those were dumb aside. sides. Not full on, oh hey, people are dead, but don't worry, bros before heroes. Holy fuck. Tom King is a hack. Heroes in Crisis is completely tactless and insipid. I wish people had seen this beforehand. He's only written maybe 3 good things, 2 of those being one-shot issues. He's just not skilled. He's actively terrible at times. And while this is maybe debatably the lowest he's gotten, it's still perhaps the most tone-deaf and inept. At the very, very least, Mr. Miracle took its beats seriously. They might have been disastrous and honestly really, really stupid, but they knew what emotions they wanted to land. This is right up there with Cry for Justice or Countdown in terms of emotional incompetence. So yeah, 2 thumbs down. But hopefully people have started to see behind the veneer and facade of Tom King here. He's never gonna get better unless people strive for him to be better. Tom King could, and maybe should, still be a great writer if only people didn't keep on acting like he already is one, because he isn't. He's a writer with promise who does good things from time to time, but he's not great. And that's a shame. It's holding him back, and it's probably holding back future masterpieces that we could be getting, because I think he does show that level of promise, despite all of his huge disasters that he's written. So yeah, again, 2 thumbs down. Next up, we have Doomsday Clock number 10. This was perhaps one of the more enjoyable Jeff Johns comics I've read in years, and for a singular reason. It's pretty much condensed, pure, and refined DC Universe cornball and cheese. I think that by now we should all have given up on the idea that this event could ever live up, or even come close to Watchmen in terms of quality or skill. And this issue doesn't really try at all. It's just completely focused on the insanity and lunacy of the DC Universe, and mines as much as it can from that idea and for all that it's worth. It's a pretty damn great issue because of it. It's pretty much a spotlight of all that makes the DC Comics over universe unique and interesting. And that's an old cliche for this franchise, but Johns knows how to play it when he wants to, when he decides to relax a bit on the throttle. And he does so here. It's not even just that we're seeing it play out through Dr. Manhattan's eyes, which helps, but the really human threads that we're seeing being developed throughout. How the chaotic nature of the sliding timeline, the reboots, the retcons, all of it, that can affect and shift the people these characters are. It's taking a really blunt and simple real-world token that these are motivated to boost sales for shock value or to remain relevant, and grounding them so defiantly as part of the tapestry of the DCU. As naturally as they even can be. There's something so resounding about seeing the various origins of Superman one after the other, like the melody of a rising song. It's very Morrison-esque. It's majestic in that way. And of course we get a montage of the JSA's origins, and it just showcases how cool they were. So there's a lot to enjoy here. It's a fun issue to read and falls into a lot of standard ideas and tropes that a lot of writers have used with the DC characters, but they're all hit very well. I don't think this should have been an issue 10, and I think it cements the idea that this series did not need to be 12 issues at all. But it's kind of nice that this exists. I don't have faith that Johns will land the last 2 issues one bit. I think that it's going to fall flat on its face. But now, at the very least, there was something of value in this Maxa series, and that's worth something, I guess. 1 thumb middle, 1 thumb up. Moving ahead, we have the Wildstorm number 23, which is the penultimate issue of this Maxa series. Well, I can't lie, this really started to amp things up. Someone said that it feels like Ellis realized there's only 1 issue left, and I can't help but feel like there's some merit to that. Honestly, things were already converging at the start of this arc. There was a natural momentum to it. But then it was just struck by a whole load of stalling. Now in this issue, there is this really huge sense of everything just being rushed together into a focal point. Explicitly even. And I can't help but feel like there is a way this could have been handled better. Maybe a little bit more economical than the previous 3 issues, so that it wouldn't have whimpered out so much. But it is what it is. The rush feeling does help in a way, as it allows the issue to be littered with fun character asides that kind of do hit hard. Things like Jenny Sparks apologizing for this becoming about killing so fast, or beats like Midnighter and Apollo being a bit taken aback at the orgy that the other characters were involved in, are completely Ellisian touches that help bridge quick and easy dynamics as this hurries to conclude. There's not a lot more it can do at this point. I've always been of the idea that this series would end really openly, so that seems on track. I do hope that at least it can land whatever it can, and in so much as the characters and where they are going and how they relate to each other, this issue really does try to make all of that work and all that at least have some grounding here. And it kind of works. I think that it was really enjoyable, and whether or not it holds up to scrutiny will definitely be to see if it lands in the final issue. As for what it's set for itself, it's a given that the final issue will have a huge burden on its shoulders, and I hope it doesn't collapse. This was a decent issue and I had a lot of fun with it, but I can definitely see where it's very precarious and at a very risky position. So 2 thumbs middle, and then I have to see where it goes. I have to see where it ends before I even retroactively decide this issue is even worth it. So, but 2 thumbs middle. And finally, we have the Immortal Hulk number 18, which is another delightful issue. It's tragic, horrifying, and disgusting, but also, well, delightful. I mean, I love this. Not only do we get more of Hulk's side characters coming together and actually having so much to say to each other, but we're finally dipping into the really harrowing Abomination storyline that's been building up. It's just a great collision course of plots, and it's wonderfully manic about it. What helps the series combat decompression issues that plague so many other long runs nowadays is that it has so many tightly wound and interwoven plots. It makes it incredibly satisfying to read it all in one go, and there's enough character and personality in each single issue to make it a worthwhile read even. Red She-Harpy gets 1 page, but it's so full of life and emotional resonance of the character herself and what they bring to the table. It's economical and effective. Bruce gets in on the action too, with funny moments concerning his interactions with both the Devil Hulk and Joe Fixit. This Hulk pantheon is growing, and it's got this tangible zest to it. It feels so down to earth, and it's wonderful because of that. It is like a campy quality to it that he really knows how to ride. And I guess that's a great segue into the Abomination. I love him. I think he's awesome. I love the design as well. I think it's a perfect design. Well, most of it. He's got the same amazing staunch and stocky build as the Hulk. It's a wonderful translation of that original Silver Age aesthetic. However, the face, while a cool idea, ends up looking pretty lame. I love the idea of a Rick Jones face that arrives in pain and is even bifurcated, but the coloring of it, like it staying the color of his pink skin, just looks awkward and really jarring, but not in a good way, not in an effective way, but just like, oh, that's a jarring design. I think that Ross's version on the number 19 cover is probably the best look at this so far. It seems more merged and melded in tones in that depiction, and I think like that really does work. While this one, it just seems like green, pink, and it just doesn't work. I don't think it works. I think that hopefully we see some more development of it, and that this is just kind of the early design, or at the very least, at least the rest of it is so good that as long as the hands are covered up, I don't need to give a shit about it. But it's great fundamentals, and that's what this series is. What more can I say? I love it. I feel so at home with this series. It just hits every note, and it's a passion project, but it's a passion project that knows when to let the classic tones and structure supersede things, and that's pretty magical. It really is. Overall, this was an amazing redo of this iconic villain, and their whole dynamic with the Hulk is just now added to this insanely tragic and downcast beat, and I love it. And I can't wait to see how Ewing plays Hulk's reaction. Rick Jones is important, and this is an atom bomb for the characters, so fingers crossed. 1 thumb up, 1 thumb middle. Oh right, and I forgot, there's also the Jimmy Olsen preview in the Leviathan one-shot prologue thing for Bendis' Superman event. The Jimmy Olsen preview was good and maybe a bit too wordy and self-effacing. I'm definitely optimistic about the series that's to come, but it did feel very sort of lackadaisical. I was expecting a little bit more like energetic, and this one just felt kind of dragging a bit, which is kind of weird because it's such a short story, but it does get kind of dull in places. This left a good first impression more than anything. So yeah, 1 thumb up, 1 thumb middle. Alright, so let's move into what I watched this week. The first thing is going to be a little bit of a special request from the awesome Tex on Twitter, and it was mainly for a small overview and recommendation. So let's get into Guy Ritchie's remake of Aladdin. Honestly, I really liked it, but it comes with a whole lot of caveats. Aladdin is something that should have 100% been pushed onto their streaming service alongside the live action Lady and Tramp they're saving for that. In a nutshell, almost all the stuff they do different is pretty fun and actually damn solid at points. And all the stuff they keep the same, which is about 80% of the movie, is weaker. I don't think there's anything outright bad of the stuff they directly try to adapt, but it is just of a lesser quality. The movie overall doesn't feel cinematic at all at times, and I feel it was something that should not have been pushed in the theaters like this. So yeah, I think it might have fared a lot better on a streaming service, or to ride the wave at least. I didn't pay ticket price, feeling that a lot of things get on there. But yeah, I dug most of it, but hoo boy, this is not really a thrilling theater experience unless you're really into it, because it's definitely a novelty. I will say, however, that I find the decision to make most of the songs almost like dialogue and how they performed as a part of the actual scenes is really a bold choice, and it more often works and hits hard than it fails or falls flat. I think it's more Richie playing to his strengths, and I think it does pay off. Some of the new character motivations and revisions I think really do work, and I think add a lot, and I think they have a lot of fun and creativity with that, and also all the little asides and dynamic touches really do solidly land. So overall, I enjoyed it, but I can understand why people wouldn't, and I can understand why people would find this kind of a useless remake. It kind of is, but it's a lot more, well, earning of its place in existing than, say, Beauty Beauty and the Beast. So two thumbs middle, but a high two thumbs middle. Hope that helped, Tex, if you're listening to this. Alright, so let's move on to, well, the first premiere of the summer, which is Swamp Thing, episode 1, titled Pilots. Now, if there was a spectrum with Doom Patrol on one end and Titans on the other, in terms of how faithful in spirit and tone the shows were to their source material, then Swamp Thing pretty much lands in the middle with heavy leanings toward Titans. And that's not a bad thing. That spectrum is just how it is as an adaptation. It's definitely more of the based on and inspired by school of thinking that many other DC shows are a part of. Just taking whatever they can from the root concept and doing what they want with it. Thankfully, it's more like Lucifer or a zombie in its prime, and less like the typical CW trash heap we come to expect. It's actually really enjoyable and engaging. It changes a lot, it pivots the focus, the story, the characters, and pretty much everything else to fit a more standard dramatic mold, almost procedural or soap opera-esque in a way. Kind of a straight drama, but a drama from this pilot that feels rather earned and developed. A lot of that comes from the script. It's tight, character-bound, and, well, gives a start to the major players that has a lot of room to breathe and exude personality and charm and actual interconnectedness, but also in laying down the real groundwork for this, well, like I said, soapy seasonal plot. While I might harp on those two, like the soapy aspects and the huge focus on very exhaustive characters, like when they're played too much, again, like a CW show would, here it's done, well, skillfully. Actors like Crystal Reed and Andy Bean carry the show with ease. That dynamic that they share as Abby and Alec works and rather hits the ground running at times. There are some creaks in it, but the strength of the writing, similarly to Aquaman's romance or the lesser beats of Doom Patrol, helps to keep the budding romance from it to be feeling buoyant. It does the whole more energetic man and stricter reserved woman thing, but not in the insanely annoying way that only hacks do it. It becomes quickly apparent that they're meant to be more than just clashing, that both characters have more to them than just stock attitudes, and that there is real room for them to connect. And they do. It wonderfully builds up what is meant to develop between the two characters, and I love it. Another thing I enjoyed is that the show firmly places the focus on Abby. She's our main character. This pushes Alec into the role of a side character who sort of tags along and intrudes and, is there for fun, but primarily on the sidelines. While it may seem to others a disservice to the title character, I think it works because of how they play it and how the actors commit to their roles with equal gusto. It underlines the tragedy that Alec faces at the end, and because he had been this peppy, comfy side story throughout the pilot, its collateral damage, well, it feels sudden and shocking and has some impact. So really, the soapy nature of the show, which is almost Twin Peaksy in a way, is withstood by these two, and I hope it continues to be. The trailers really undersold this show. They promoted a gimmicky, trashy, cliche-ridden mess, and this is something better than that. I can't wait for their next episode, because, well, a lot of it rides on it, because this is all set up. One thing, though, is that I hope the show doesn't ever go full more. I think it would be a disservice to the character of Alec, and really serve no purpose other than being a boring twist. Or, if they go that route, at the very least play it more like Scott Snyder did, where the boundaries and limits of the consciousness of Swamp Thing and Alec was a lot more vague and muddled. Fingers crossed. Also, The Rot, if it is The Rot, the show was very ambiguous at that right now. Looks awesome. The production design of the show has never been in doubt. So yeah, 2 thumbs up. There's always room for improvement, especially in a pilot. Alright, so let's move on to listener questions. We have one this week from El Bueno, and their question is that, we all know your opinion about recent Tom King books, but what about his older work, like Vision and Omega Men? And what about his Batman run? What do you think about that run in general? And that's a great question, El Bueno, and well, it's something that I guess I've been thinking about a lot lately, because, I actually definitely solidly like Vision and a fair amount of his one-shots. I know I consistently say that King is a talentless hack with no creativity and even less interesting qualities as a writer, but once in a while he does write something really enjoyable. It's just that it comes from huge buffer zones, one shots that need a definitive beginning, middle, and end, and have no room for fucking around trying to be more clever than you are, or wasting time because you think the compression is a pillar of prestige comics, which is all bullshit. But I did like the Grayson Backwards issue, or his Commandy Challenge one shot, or his Batman number FUD one shot, and his Vision, but again, all with caveats. His Vision in particular, it only really works because the character has so many in-universe excuses at the time for why everything is happening. A blank-minded robot in an equally sterile suburban existence. It's a great premise that is hard to screw up. Altogether, it's enough to almost feel natural, but even then, some people make the credible complaint that he goes beyond what was necessary and mangles a few of the side characters, and I find it hard to argue against that, especially on rereads. Omega Men? I just thought it was boring. I know people praise it a lot, but I can never get into it, so I never made a stance one way or the other because like it's just not for me, right? But rereading it though, in full mind of where Tom King has gone as a writer since then, it becomes apparent that it's full of the same tired bullshit that Tom King always tries to do. He's a one-trick pony, and I can't say that that one trick can't be effective, but it's like hype for a CW show. It retroactively wears off once you become cognizant of it. His Batman run? Well, that's just embarrassing. I won't even mention the structure of the plotting, which is pretty much disgusting, but the way he writes foreshadowing and important weighty lines is atrocious. Oh my god, how many times do we need to have a character say, broke the bat? We get it. We fucking get it. It was an important milestone. But repeating it again and again is laughable. It's not dramatic. It doesn't increase tension. It's not shocking. It's honestly a joke at this point. It's a fucking joke. And I mean, this guy, Tom King, I cannot believe people call him the new Jack Kirby. Even Dan Jurgens called him the new Jack Kirby, the torchbearer. It's insanity. And I won't apologize for the works of his I do like, but I will never not call him a completely terrible writer because the missteps amazingly outweigh the good. If the good is even good at all. Thank you for that question, El Bueno. I had a lot of fun answering it, despite the sort of depressive mood I got into during it, because, well, it's nice to think about these things. You have to become fluent in why you hate something, or why you have a distaste for a writer or a comic, you know? So that was really fun to practice that. I really appreciate the question, El Bueno. And I just want to say thank you to everyone out there who has ever sent in a question or comment or a topic. It means so much to me. I just want to say that it's amazing, and I'm really humbled by it. So thank you so much. And if anyone out there has their own question, comment, or topic that they want to hear discussed on the show, you can always find me on Twitter at THE_SNICKMAN. And I want to give a shout out to the cover artists for the show at DOTEMCEE. I think that you should check them out. They're amazing. And, well, thank you guys so much. Next week, I'm going to be doing a review of Dark Phoenix. I hope you have a great week, and see you then.